was a deep admirer of Mrs. Brigida Mendoza. She was a shining example for everyone she knew. She showed us how to live. I'm guessing that as a pastor's wife, she attended church nearly every Sunday of her adult life, just about, anyway. And she met Reverend Mendoza when they were both very young. She was a devoted Christian long before that. I only met her about 2 years ago now, just as she was beginning to wind down her participation in the church. I am told that she was an organist for many years and was a counselor throughout most of her adult life, advising parishioners and community members in crisis wherever she and her husband were pastoring. Through all of this, she set a powerful example of faith and never relinquished that faith to doubt and despair. Hope can be an insult if you lose too much. Losing a son to illness, as Brigida did, is the depths of despair. But the Lord met her in that despair. In time, she lost a son and she lost a husband. In Canada, she was 8,000 miles from home. But instead, she chose to continue to profess her growing love for the Lord. And she knew that she found a new home in Canada. She knew, through all the pain of loss, even so, her husband and her son were now in the presence of the Lord. I always got the sense that Brigida was fully committed to everything she did, including her faith, her family, and her church. Mrs. Mendoza touched my heart. Seeing her in her final days and witnessing her grace in decline, I sometimes felt torn with despair that such a faithful woman had to endure so much pain and suffering. Here was another of God's people succumbing to death. Against my better judgment, I felt anguished. I felt at a loss for what to do. And against all my preaching and thinking, I felt sorry for her. I questioned God. Why do your people have to suffer in this way? Not so Brigida. She didn't think this way at all. Not so Mrs. Mendoza. She lay on her deathbed day after day, receiving guests, offering encouragement wherever and whenever she could, and always she would remind us, the Lord is good. The Lord is good. When she was too weak to talk, she would sleep and had a look of bliss on her face. Mrs. Mendoza taught us how to die with dignity. She gave us the best example to follow, demonstrating how death is not an end, but a beginning. That it is possible to die with dignity in the face of this, the greatest of all challenges to faith, and to use that challenge not as a source of anger and resentment or even despair, but to see in its depths a reason to love, and to love all the more intensely the life she saw in her children and grandchildren, and to simply celebrate the gift of being alive. Her example left me with a renewed sense of confidence in my own faith, and to know that the specter of death does not extinguish hope, but reveals God at its center. Godspeed, Mrs. Mendoza, and thank you for your faithful inspiration. You will be sadly missed. Amen.